forest was silent, too silent. The two moons of Viralia floated above the mist, painting the giant trees with silver light. Between those roots and shadows, two alien sisters ran for their lives. Their soft feet pressed against wet moss, leaving faint trails of light behind. The older sister, Lyra, pulled the younger Novi by the hand, whispering, "Don't stop no matter what happens." Behind them came the sound of metal feet, cold and sharp, the hunters. Their armor glowed red as they scanned the forest, following every trace of movement. They were not human, not even close. They hunted for trophies, and tonight the sisters were their prize. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. The night air was heavy, full of the smell of rain and burnt metal. Her lungs burned, but she didn't dare slow down. She could hear Novi breathing fast, almost crying, but trying to be brave. Every sound made Lyra turn her head, fearing a shadow that wasn't there. The trees grew thicker, the fog denser. They reached a shallow stream, its cold water glowing faint blue under the moonlight. Lyra lifted Novi across, her hands shaking. "We're close," she whispered, though she didn't know where close was. She only hoped the hunters would lose their trail. A sudden beam of red light flashed through the fog. It cut across their path and hit a nearby tree, burning a hole clean through it. Lyra froze. She pushed Novi down into the mud. A voice echoed behind them, deep and cruel. "Found them." The sisters crawled behind a fallen trunk, their hearts racing. The hunters moved closer, their footsteps loud now. Lyra's hand reached for a sharp rock. It was all she had. She knew it wouldn't help, but she had to try. Novi trembled beside her. "Lyra," she whispered softly, "they'll take us." Lyra turned, eyes full of fire. "No, they won't." The hunters spread out, scanning every shadow. One of them laughed, a dry metallic sound. "Run all you want, little prey," he said. "We enjoy the chase." Lyra looked at Novi's small, scared face. Something inside her broke. She couldn't let them both die. Her sister was too young, too kind. She deserved more than this. The red lights came closer. Lyra's body shook, but her voice didn't. She stood up from behind the trunk, her hands raised. Her voice was calm but heavy with fear. "Take me instead," she said. The words hung in the air. The forest seemed to stop breathing. Even the hunters froze. Novi gasped, clutching the tree. "No, Lyra, no!" The tallest hunter stepped forward. His mask hissed as he spoke. "You offer yourself freely?" Lyra nodded, her throat tight. "Just let her go." The hunter tilted his head, almost amused. "You think we make deals?" He lifted his weapon, the red barrel glowing hot. "Both of you belong to the hunt." Before he could fire, the ground shook. A new sound ripped through the night, a deep, roaring noise that didn't belong in the forest. The hunters turned in confusion, scanning the sky. A light bright as fire burst through the fog, followed by the crash of metal tearing trees apart. Something was coming down fast. A ship, smoking and broken, cutting through the forest canopy. It hit the ground with a blast that sent dust and heat flying everywhere. The hunters stumbled, shouting orders. Lyra dropped to the ground, shielding Novi. When the dust cleared, a figure stepped out of the wreckage. He was tall, covered in dirt and smoke, with armor that looked strange and unfamiliar. His eyes glowed faint blue beneath his cracked helmet. The hunters aimed their weapons, ready to fire again. The stranger lifted his arm and fired first. A bright beam of energy shot through the air, striking one of the hunters down in a single hit. The others shouted, ducking for cover. Lyra pulled Novi behind a tree. She stared at the figure in disbelief. "What is that?" Novi whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "I don't know, but he's not one of them." The human, because that's what he was, stood alone, facing the hunters with calm fury. His voice echoed across the clearing. "Pick on someone your own size." The hunters opened fire and the forest exploded into chaos. Lyra didn't understand what was happening, but she knew one thing. The stranger wasn't their enemy. She felt something strange in her chest, a spark of hope she hadn't felt in years. As explosions lit the night sky, Lyra whispered to her sister, "Stay close, Novi. Maybe we can still survive this." The forest burned around them, red and silver light mixing in the fog, and somewhere inside that storm of fire and fear, an alien girl's whisper had already changed fate. The air still smelled of smoke and metal after the crash. The forest, once full of whispers and fear, was now glowing red from fire and plasma burns. Lyra held Novi close behind a broken tree, her heart beating so fast she could feel it in her throat. She looked at the strange man who had fallen from the sky, the human. He moved differently from the hunters, fast and bold. His armor was rough and scratched, but his eyes burned with purpose. He carried a strange weapon that made a low hum each time he fired. Every blast cut through the fog, forcing the hunters to retreat deeper into the trees. When the last shot faded, the forest became quiet again. Lyra didn't move. She didn't trust this man. But she also couldn't ignore what she saw. He had saved them. The human turned slowly, his helmet cracked and his left arm bleeding through the armor. His voice came out rough but steady. "You two okay?" Lyra didn't answer. She stood in front of Novi, guarding her like a shield. "Who are you?" she asked. "Eli," he said simply, lowering his weapon. "I crash-landed here. Didn't expect company." Lyra's sharp eyes stayed on him. "You shouldn't have come. The hunters will return." He gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, I figured. But if I didn't step in, you'd be dead already." Novi peeked out from behind her sister. Her big golden eyes glowed softly in the dim light. "You saved us," she said quietly. Eli nodded once. "Couldn't just watch." He stumbled back toward his crashed ship, sparks flying from the broken engine. The sisters followed at a distance, still unsure. The ship was small but strong, covered in scratches from countless battles. Inside, lights flickered weakly, and a small screen showed error codes in red. Eli tapped the console, cursing under his breath. "Engine's gone. Shields are fried." Lyra looked around nervously. "They will find us soon." "They never stop." Eli turned to her. "Then we make them stop," Lyra frowned. "You don't understand. They hunt for blood. They don't stop until everything is gone." He met her eyes. "I've fought worse." For a moment, the alien girl and the human just stared at each other. Two different worlds standing side by side. Lyra didn't know why, but she believed him. Novi sat near the fire Eli had started, using a small tool from his belt. She looked tired, her leg bleeding from a cut. Eli knelt beside her and opened a small metal box. Inside were glowing patches and tiny bottles. "Hold still," he said softly. Lyra stepped forward, ready to stop him, but then saw Novi's face relax as the human pressed a warm patch to her wound. The bleeding stopped instantly. "Better?" he asked. Novi nodded, eyes wide with surprise. "It doesn't hurt anymore." Eli smiled faintly. "Good." He leaned back against the rock, breathing heavily. His suit was torn, revealing a mark burned into his shoulder. An old military brand. Lyra pointed to it. "You're a soldier?" "Was," he said. "Not anymore." Silence followed. Only the sound of wind moved through the burning trees. Lyra watched the man carefully, her thoughts spinning. Why would a human risk his life for strangers from another world? Suddenly, the ground trembled. A deep, low sound echoed through the forest. Something large was moving nearby. Eli's head snapped up. "They're back?" Lyra shook her head. "No, that's not them. That's worse." The hunters had released their tracker beast, a giant predator with metal claws and skin like stone. Its growl rolled through the fog like thunder. Eli grabbed his weapon, checking the remaining charge. "I'm almost out of power." Novi clung to Lyra's arm. "What do we do?" Lyra's voice trembled. "We run." Eli shook his head. "You won't make it far. That thing can smell your fear from half a mile away." Lyra stared at him. "Then what do we do?" He looked down at a small device in his hand, a glowing energy cell. He handed it to her. "When I say now, press the button." She hesitated. "What does it do?" "It might buy us a chance," he said. "Or blow us all up. Depends how lucky we are." Before she could answer, the beast broke through the trees, taller than the ship, eyes burning red. It roared, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Eli took a deep breath and shouted, "Now!" Lyra pressed the button and a blinding flash burst out. The ground cracked, light exploded, and everything went white. When the light faded, silence filled the forest again. Smoke drifted across the ground, and the beast was gone. Eli stood there breathing hard, his armor scorched but still holding. He looked at the sisters and smiled weakly. "Told you it might work?" Lyra stared at him in disbelief. She didn't understand humans, but in that moment she felt something strange. Hope. And deep inside her heart she knew. The night was not over, and neither was the hunt. The forest lay quiet after the explosion, but the air was thick with tension. Smoke curled around broken branches and the ground was littered with scorched leaves. Lyra helped Novi to her feet, her hands shaking. The younger sister's eyes were wide with fear, but there was relief too. relief that they had survived the first attack. Eli stood a few steps ahead, checking his weapon and scanning the trees. His armor was scratched and dented, and smoke rose from a crack in his shoulder plate. Yet he moved with calm precision, aware that more danger could arrive at any moment. Lyra whispered to Novi, "Stay close. Don't make a sound." Her heart pounded in her chest as she studied the forest. Even with the hunters gone, she could feel the menace lingering like shadows waiting to strike. Novi looked up at Eli. Who are you really?" she asked softly. Eli crouched near her, his eyes calm. "Name's Eli. I came from far away. My ship crashed while I was exploring. Didn't expect to find anyone alive here, especially not two girls being hunted." Lyra stepped forward. "You shouldn't have come. The hunters will follow." "They always follow," he shook his head. "Better to fight than run. I don't leave people to die." The sisters exchanged a glance. Lyra wanted to argue, but deep down she felt a strange trust. There was something different about this human, something that set him apart from the hunters. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them. A low growl echoed through the trees, deeper than any creature they had heard before. The tracker beast. Its glowing eyes pierced the fog, and it moved faster than any hunter they had seen. Eli's hand tightened on his weapon. "We don't have time." "You both need to move." Lyra's mind raced. She knew the beast could track them easily, and she knew it was faster and stronger than either of them. Her thoughts went to her promise, her whispered words to the hunters. "Take me instead." She had offered herself to protect Novi, and now that promise weighed heavily on her heart. She looked at Eli. "If it finds us, it won't stop, and I can't let it take my sister." He studied her face, reading her fear. "Then we face it together. You can't run from this alone." The sisters moved behind Eli as he fired warning shots, slowing the beast's approach. Sparks flew from his weapon, lighting up the fog in short bursts. The tracker beast snarled, circling them, testing their movements. Novi clung to Lyra's side, trembling. "I don't want to die," she whispered. "You won't," Lyra said firmly, though her voice shook. "I promised you. I'll protect you." Eli watched the exchange silently. He could see the bond between them, stronger than any weapon. Then he turned his gaze to the approaching danger. "We need a plan. It's faster than us, but it can be distracted." He rummaged through his pack and pulled out a small glowing device. "This will slow it down for a few minutes. Long enough to escape." Lyra took the device, her hands shaking. "I hope this works," she muttered. The beast roared, charging at them, and Eli fired a pulse that struck its side. It yelped but kept coming, more furious than before. Lyra pressed the button on the device, sending a wave of energy into the air. The forest trembled as vines and roots shot up from the ground, tangling the beast's legs and slowing it enough for them to move. Novi gasped. "It's working." Lyra nodded, holding her sister tightly. "Keep moving. Don't look back." Eli led them deeper into the fog, their breaths loud in the silent forest. Each step was heavy with fear, yet Lyra felt something else, something she hadn't felt in years. A small spark of hope, a chance that they might survive together. As they ran, Lyra realized that survival came at a price. She had made a promise to protect her sister, and now that promise was being tested in ways she never imagined. But as long as Eli stood with them, she knew the hunt might not end in death this time. The night pressed in around them, dark and endless, but in that moment, for the first time, Lyra felt that the tide might finally turn. The hunt was far from over, but so was their fight. The fog had thickened as night fell, curling around the trunks of ancient trees. The forest, once alive with the sounds of wind and distant animals, now felt hollow. Lyra led her sister Novi through the twisted roots, her eyes scanning every shadow. The humans had saved them once, but she knew the hunters would not give up. Not now. Eli moved ahead, checking every path for danger. His armor was scratched, his face streaked with soot and sweat, yet he carried a calm determination that made Lyra trust him more than she wanted to admit. "Stay close," he whispered without looking back. "If they find you alone, it's over." Novi clutched her sister's arm, her small hands trembling. "Do you think they'll stop?" she asked. "No," Lyra said, her voice steady though her heart pounded. "They never stop." Suddenly a strange glow appeared ahead. Lyra froze. The light was faint, coming from symbols carved into the bark of the trees. She recognized them immediately, ancient runes from her tribe left hundreds of years ago. She touched one of the glowing symbols and it pulsed under her fingers. A shiver ran down her spine. "They know me," she whispered. Eli noticed her pause. "What is it?" "Something old. From my people," Lyra said. "This forest. It remembers." The sisters moved closer to the glowing runes and the energy seemed to pulse faster, as if reacting to their presence. For a brief moment, the forest felt alive, not threatening but protective. Then the ground trembled. Lyra's eyes widened. A deep growl rolled through the fog, shaking leaves and branches. The tracker beast had returned, larger and angrier than before. Its glowing red eyes cut through the darkness and its claws scraped against the trees. Behind it, the hunters moved silently, circling, waiting. Eli readied his weapon. "It's smarter than last time," he muttered. "They trained it well." Lyra grabbed Novi's hand, holding her close. "If it reaches us, I will—" She hesitated, the memory of her promise to the hunters pressing on her mind. "I will protect you no matter what." Eli shook his head. "You're not alone in this. We fight together." The beast lunged from behind a tree, roaring as the hunters shouted. Eli fired precise shots, forcing it back a step. But the forest trembled with its fury. Lyra felt her pulse racing. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, but she couldn't leave Novi behind. The glowing runes reacted to her fear. A faint light spread from the tree symbols to the ground, creating a shimmering barrier around the sisters. The energy seemed alive, pulsing with her heartbeat. Eli noticed the change. "What is that?" he asked. "My people." "Left it here," Lyra said. "It protects the chosen." The tracker beast roared again, charging directly toward them. Eli grabbed a device from his belt and pressed a button. A wave of energy shot outward, momentarily slowing the beast and the hunters alike. "Run," he shouted. Lyra pulled Novi through the glowing path, their feet light on the moss. The forest seemed to guide them, twisting roots and branches to block their pursuers. But the hunters were clever. They split up, flanking the sisters from different directions. Eli fired warning shots, keeping them at bay, but he knew it would not hold for long. Lyra looked at Eli, determination in her eyes. "We have to fight. I can feel the forest with me. It will help if we use it right." Eli nodded, understanding the unspoken plan. Together they positioned themselves in the heart of the glowing runes. As the beast and hunters closed in, the energy from the ancient symbols rose, forming a protective circle. The air crackled. Shadows danced across the forest floor. For the first time, Lyra felt that they were not merely fleeing. They were preparing to face their hunters head-on. The trackers were near. The forest pulsed with life. And in the heart of the glowing runes, an alien girl and a human man stood together, ready to turn the hunt into a fight that neither side would forget. The night was far from over. The forest was alive with danger. The red glow of the hunters' weapons cut through the fog, and the low growl of the tracker beast echoed between the ancient trees. Lyra's heart pounded as she held Novi close. Every instinct screamed to run, but Eli stood firm, his weapon raised, a wall between them and the hunters. "Stay behind me," Eli said, his voice calm but strong. "I'll handle this." Lyra glanced at him. His armor was battered, smoke curling from his shoulder, but his eyes burned with focus. She didn't know what kind of human he was, only that he was different. Strong, fearless, unyielding. The beast charged first, its claws tearing through the ground. Eli fired, the blasts of light slicing the fog. The creature roared in pain, but it didn't stop. Lyra's pulse raced as the hunters circled behind it, their weapons aimed and ready. The sisters were trapped. "Run!" Eli shouted suddenly. "Move to the runes." Lyra grabbed Novi and sprinted toward the glowing symbols in the trees. The ancient energy pulsed faster as they neared it, forming a protective barrier around them. The hunters hesitated, unsure of what the light meant, and the beast snarled in frustration. Eli didn't move. He faced the hunters, shouting, "You want to hunt? Hunt me!" The hunters hesitated, shocked by his bravery, and the beast lunged straight at him. Eli rolled aside, firing his remaining energy shots into its eyes. Sparks flew and the creature howled in fury. Lyra watched, breathless, as Eli dodged claws and weapon fire, drawing the hunters and beast away from the runes. Every shot he fired, every movement he made was precise. He was buying them time. Suddenly, the beast struck him, knocking him to the ground. Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to run to him to help, but she couldn't leave Novi. The tracker beast loomed over him, growling, claws raised. Eli's hand hit something small in his belt, a glowing grenade-like device. He pressed it and a pulse of energy erupted. throwing the beast back and shaking the ground. Trees splintered and leaves fell like rain. The hunters were forced to retreat, protecting themselves from the blast. For a moment, silence returned. Smoke curled around the fallen branches, and Eli lay on the ground, breathing heavily. Lyra's legs shook as she ran to him, lifting him up. His armor was scorched, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. "You're hurt badly," Lyra whispered, fear rising in her chest. Eli smiled weakly. "Nothing I can't handle." "Are you both safe?" "Yes," Lyra said, holding Novi tight. "Thanks to you." He looked at the sisters, exhaustion and relief in his eyes. "We're not done yet," he said. "The hunters will come back, and next time they'll be stronger." Lyra nodded. She had seen his courage, felt his strength. For the first time, she realized that survival wasn't about running. It was about standing together. Novi tugged at her sister's hand. "Will they hurt us again?" she asked, her voice small. Lyra shook her head. "Not if we stick together. He will help us." She looked at Eli. "Thank you for saving us." Eli waved her off with a faint smile. "I didn't save just you. I saved the future of your people." The forest seemed to breathe around them, the glowing runes faintly pulsing as if recognizing Lyra's resolve. The tracker beast had retreated into the mist, wounded but alive. The hunters had disappeared for now, but Lyra knew they would return. She pressed her forehead against Novi's. "We survived this night, but the fight isn't over." Eli stood, leaning on his weapon for support. "We'll face them together. You've got a power here you don't even understand yet, and I'll be here as long as I can stand." Lyra's chest tightened with a mix of fear and hope. She didn't know if the human would survive the next attack, but she knew one thing. Tonight, he had shown her the true meaning of courage. The forest was dark, but for the first time Lyra felt that they were not alone. The hunt had paused, the night was theirs for a while, and the bond between human and alien had grown stronger. Somewhere in the distance, the hunters regrouped. Somewhere the tracker beast licked its wounds, but in the heart of the forest a human had stood against impossible odds, and two sisters had survived because of him. The night was far from over, but so was their fight, and Lyra knew she would never forget the human who had dared to stand. The forest had grown quiet again, but the air was heavy with the memory of the night's chaos. Lyra, Novi, and Eli had found shelter in a hollowed-out grove, protected by the glowing runes that pulsed softly under the twin moon's light. The sisters huddled close to Eli, who sat against a moss-covered tree trying to catch his breath. His wounds were serious, but his spirit remained unbroken. Novi watched him carefully, her small hands clasped together. "Will you be okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. Eli gave a faint smile.
"I'll manage."
"Don't worry about me. Worry about yourself and your sister." Lyra studied the grove, her fingers brushing the glowing runes. Something deep inside her stirred, a feeling she hadn't felt since childhood. The runes were alive. They pulsed with energy, responding to her presence almost as if the forest itself recognized her. Her heart beat faster. She realized the power of her people had not entirely vanished. "What is this place?" Eli asked, his eyes scanning the shadows. "My tribe used these forests for protection," Lyra explained, her voice hushed. "These symbols, they are guardians. They respond to blood and fear, to hope and courage." Eli nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Then we have allies in the forest itself." As Lyra traced the glowing lines with her hands, visions appeared in her mind. Memories of her ancestors, their battles, their victories, and their final downfall. She gasped, staggering backward. "I remember," she whispered. "Everything. The hunters. They want the power my people carried. They want us gone so no one remembers what we can do." Novi pressed herself against her sister. "Can they come back?" "They will," Lyra said softly. "And they'll be stronger next time." Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we prepare. We don't run from them. We face them. Together." A faint hum filled the grove, the runes pulsing brighter. Lyra could feel energy flowing through her veins, warming her from the inside out. Fear and despair melted, replaced by something stronger. Purpose. She looked at Eli. "I think I can control this," she said, hope lacing her voice. Eli's eyes widened. "Control what?" "The forest. The runes. They obey me now. I can use their power to protect us and fight back." Novi gasped. "Does that mean we can stop them?" "Yes," Lyra whispered, closing her eyes to feel the energy. We can survive. Not just survive. We can win. The sisters huddled together as Eli watched, his expression a mix of awe and determination. For the first time, he felt that they weren't just fleeing victims, they were warriors. Ready to reclaim what was theirs. Suddenly, a faint noise reached their ears. The sound of distant engines, metal scraping against the forest floor. The hunters had returned. But this time Lyra was ready. She felt the energy of the runes flowing through her, twisting roots and branches in response to her thoughts. The forest was no longer a place to hide, it was a weapon. Eli stood, placing himself in front of the sisters. Whatever comes, he said, voice steady, we face it together. You have the power. I have the skill. And together nothing can stop us. Lyra took a deep breath, her hands glowing faintly. I understand now, she said. The hunters are not the end, they are the beginning. My people's strength lives on, and they will regret ever chasing us. The night air thickened with tension. The hunters' distant shouts grew louder, the roar of the tracker beast echoing like thunder. But the forest pulsed with Lyra's command, glowing brighter, roots shifting and energy swirling around the grove. Eli glanced at her. You're ready? Lyra nodded, eyes shining with determination. I am. Let them come. The forest seemed to respond, humming with life. The sisters, side by side with Eli, were no longer running. They were preparing. They were awake. And somewhere in the distance the hunters approached, unaware that the prey they sought had become the hunters' greatest nightmare. The night was dark. But for the first time, Lyra felt hope burning brighter than fear. The forest was quiet at first, the mist curling around twisted trees like pale ghosts. The glow of the runes from Lyra's tribe lit the clearing softly, pulsing with her heartbeat. But that calm would not last. From beyond the horizon, distant engines hummed, low, menacing, and deliberate. The hunters had returned. Lyra tightened her grip on Novi's hand, her glowing energy flaring faintly around them. They've come back, she whispered. Her voice was steady, but inside her heart raced. The memory of last night's fight burned in her mind. She knew they wouldn't show mercy this time. Eli stood beside them, weapon ready. We've prepared for this. They may be stronger, but so are we. His voice was calm, but Lyra could see the tension in his eyes. He had fought countless battles, but he knew this fight would test everything. The hunters emerged from the fog, larger in number, their weapons glinting red. The tracker beast, scarred and furious, followed closely behind, its eyes fixed on the sisters. It roared, shaking the forest floor. Lyra stepped forward, raising her hands. The runes pulsed brighter, roots and vines rising from the ground, twisting and forming barriers. Branches moved like living walls, blocking the hunter's path. The forest obeyed her, alive with the power of her ancestors. Eli moved beside her, firing precise shots, taking down any hunter who dared approach the glowing circle. The sisters were no longer prey, they were protected, their power amplified by the forest itself. Novi looked at her sister, awe shining in her eyes. Can you really control this? She asked. Yes, Lyra replied, her voice strong. The forest, the runes, they obey me. We can fight. The tracker beast leapt at them, metal claws glinting, its roar deafening. Lyra focused, and the ground rose beneath it, roots entangling its legs. The beast struggled, roaring in frustration, but could not break free. Eli fired at the hunters, shouting, Keep moving! Don't give them a chance. He dodged incoming fire, using the energy of the forest to shield himself. Each step he took was precise, each shot calculated. Together they were unstoppable. The hunters tried to flank them, but the roots twisted, creating a labyrinth of barriers. The forest moved with Lyra's will, confusing and slowing their attackers. The glow from the runes spread across the clearing, casting the hunters in red and silver light. Lyra's hands glowed brighter with each passing moment. Energy pulsed from her fingertips, wrapping around the enemy's weapons and throwing them aside. The hunters were no longer in control. They were trapped in the forest's power. Eli's eyes met Lyra's. This is it, he said, a faint smile on his lips. We finish this together. The sisters stood side by side with the human, their combined courage and the forest power forming a perfect shield. The tracker beast roared once more, but it was contained, struggling against roots that bent like living steel. With a final surge of energy, Lyra unleashed a pulse that threw the remaining hunters back, scattering them into the mist. The beast, wounded and exhausted, limped away, disappearing into the shadows. The forest returned to its quiet state, the runes pulsing softly. Lyra looked at Eli, her chest heaving with relief and exhaustion. "It's over. For now," she whispered. Eli nodded, kneeling beside them. "They'll think twice before returning. And next time we'll be ready again." Novi hugged her sister tightly, tears streaming down her face. "We survived," she whispered. "Yes," Lyra said, holding her close. "We survived because we stayed together, and because we had him." She glanced at Eli, who gave her a small nod. The forest seemed to breathe around them, alive and protective. Lyra understood now that the power of her people had never truly vanished. It lived on in her and Novi, and in the bond they shared with a human who had risked everything to save them. As the first light of dawn pierced the mist, Lyra whispered softly, "Not this time. We survived together." Eli smiled, a mixture of relief and pride on his face. "Always together," he said, and in that moment, the hunters were no longer a threat. The beast was no longer a terror, and the sisters knew that no matter what came next, they would face it as one, with courage, power, and the strength of unity. The forest was calm. The night had ended. The fight had been won, but deep inside Lyra felt the truth. The galaxy was vast and their story was just beginning.